Adam Devine. I'm probably saying it wrong. Tomato. He was on Theo Von's podcast, and I couldn't find the actual video for it. I know I'm like messing up on the video stuff, but he was on Theo Von's podcast, and they were asking, there's always been a topic of conversation when it comes to because I listen to a lot of podcasts with comedians. And it's always been a topic of conversation about comedies nowadays, how you couldn't do a Hangover now, or you couldn't do an Animal House now, you couldn't do and when they bring up how comedies are suffering now, R-rated comedies specifically, it's like people are afraid to do them. Todd Phillips, who has made a bunch of R-rated comedies, has even talked about that as well, like how nowadays studios are worried about offending people and the backlash and everything, but it almost seems like now, and it's funny that it's still a topic of conversation, that when it even comes to what comedians, there's been a comedian boom these last 5-6 years when it comes to podcasts, when it comes to clips online. It just seems like there's a comedy boom that is happening right now. That's why I listen to a bunch of comedian podcasts, because I didn't listen to these podcasts before. There's a couple of podcasts that I was listening to prior of 2017, 2018, but it just seems like all of a sudden now I watch 10 more of comedians that I just found out about in the last 3 years. But it's always a topic of conversation about that, and I'm just going, all right, guys, you comedians, just hopefully you could just do shit. You don't have to deal with studios, just do your shit. And they're already things that they were getting backlash on before, they're not getting backlash on now, or they're just uncancelable. I don't know. It's all pretty crazy. But basically, what the Variety article, of course, that he actually called out for Clickbait was saying that, it says it right here. Let's just bring up his tweet. But so in the headline, which of course naturally people just read the headline, and you saw the clip, he said, you watch comedies nowadays, you're like, it's not even fucking funny. My theory, I think Marvel ruined it. So a lot of people were just kind of using this. If you hate Marvel, you used it. If you love Marvel, you try to defend it, and you're like, oh wow, well, all his comedy sucks and whatever the hell. But then of course you have a community notes right here. It says, without context, the statement is highly misleading, as Adam Devine itself quotes the tweet with the following: I was saying that studios, in trying to compete with Marvel, have stopped making mid-budget comedies. I miss seeing comedy in the theaters. So basically just talking about everybody's trying to go after the Marvel machine. And then he said right here, this is the tweet that he had right here: as a guy who loves movies and TV, it's cool to be in Variety, but this is misleading. I like Marvel, and I think these movies are cool. I was saying that studios, and of course what he said right here, he missed seeing comedy in theaters. He even followed it up right here. First flight was late, and I missed my connection. It's definitely American Air's fault, but I feel it's probably also Marvel's fault. So he's having a sense of humor about it. So a lot of people were just kind of taking his quotes, and especially with the clip I saw saying that, when it comes to Marvel's comedy, it's oh yeah, they're chasing after that. They want the PG-13 laughs or something. It's no, that's not the case. They just want the Marvel machine. They want the money. Again, it's all greed. It's all greed, but it's funny because if you make a bare bones, low budget comedy that's going to shock audiences, like The Hangover did way back when, or obviously there's movies that are trying to grab that, trying to get that lightning in a bottle. You could have a big, huge hit. You have a low budget, and then it blows up, and you could just... But then of course, they're well, we got to make sequels. And I think the Hangover movie, I think Hangover should have been one movie, and that's it. The sequels, they had their moments, but the sequels were They were just trying to capture that lightning in a bottle again. That's the only bad part, is if you have something like that, you have an R-rated, raunchy comedy that everybody goes and sees, all of a sudden it's well, now we got to make sequels. And it's well, that doesn't always work. And it really didn't work too much with the Hangover series, but